Just letting you guys know you can listen to my No Bleeps podcast anywhere you stream podcasts or on my No Bleeps YouTube channel. Link in the description. Hey guys, it's Spilly and welcome back to Spill Sesh. Today we're going to be deep diving into the Trisha Paytas episode of Them on a Mom's Basement. The episode that we've been talking about literally all week has finally been released. I mean, you guys, this has been a very big conversation. Obviously, Trisha going and linking up with Keemstar is definitely the biggest deal to happen in a while. So I'm basically going to tell you what went down in this 30-minute long podcast. Now, before we get into anything, I want to let you guys know that today's video is sponsored by Honey, and I'm so excited to be working with Honey because I genuinely use Honey anytime I am shopping online, I'm going on my favorite stores. I am always using Honey. If you guys don't know what Honey is, it's the #1 shopping tool in America. Honey has literally changed the way I shopped and has saved me so much money. It's literally just this magical button at the top of my browser, and what Honey does is it automatically searches for promo codes so you don't have to. When you put something in your cart and you go to check out, Honey then begins searching for promo codes, and they work on a ton of your favorite sites. You guys can add Honey to your browser for free. Just go to joinhoney.com/spillsesh. I personally just love how much money I have genuinely saved from clothes, furniture, to concert tickets. You guys, Honey literally searches everywhere for any way it can save you money. It's literally so easy, you guys. I'm sure you're already shopping on sites that you definitely could have been saving money on from Honey. And honestly, it's just fun to see your total go all the way down, and saving money is amazing. Once again, it's joinhoney.com/spillsesh. You guys will not regret saving money on the places that you love shopping at. Now let's get into the tea. First of all, you guys, I'm going to start off by saying that Trisha did not confront Keemstar at all. This entire thing is about Ethan. They somehow managed to bring up Ethan even when they weren't talking about him, and it's a lot of giggling, not calling out Keem like Trisha tried to say that they did.
I've called out my issues with Keemstar. We're not best friends.
And Keemstar even admitted it on the No Jumper podcast when he was on yesterday, that the whole episode is basically just them and Trisha trashing Ethan.
We ended up bashing Ethan a lot, you know. Ethan has some flaws. We talked about many different topics, but that was, I would say, the core of the conversation.
Trisha does say right off the bat that they aren't pro Keem, but the podcast isn't exactly Trisha calling Keemstar out, even though Trisha went on several video rants about Keemstar in the last couple weeks regarding his relationship with a girl who was 20 years old.
Podcasts are meant to be discussions and going back and forth with someone that you heavily disagree with, and this whole thing started with me coming for Keemstar's relationship, and I just thought talking about it on a bigger platform. I just like having discussions with people on podcasts.
Trisha did not really call him out in this video like they tried to claim that they did. But once the podcast gets going, Keem mentions to Trisha that once Frenemies broke up, there were so many people telling him to collaborate with Trisha. And Trisha does admit that Keemstar is Ethan's enemy, so they're fully aware how this looks. Trisha says, I guess the enemy of your enemy is your friend. Trisha says they're more Team Ethan than Keem, then proceeds to smack talk. They bring up the final episode of Frenemies that never aired, and Trisha says it was a really good episode, and it's a shame that people didn't get to see it. Now, at the time when they filmed this final episode of Frenemies, Trisha made a video saying what went down during the filming. Trisha said in their video that it did get pretty heated, but they felt like it had a good resolution.
We did get into it, and it got like a little heated, but I mean, the end result was, to me, so beautiful. Like, I started crying because he's like, yeah, I messed up on this one specific thing, and I don't want to get into it because obviously he doesn't want to air it, and it sucks.
And to me, it sounds like they had another fight. It wasn't good, and Trisha is only wanting it to air because Ethan apologized to them in this final Frenemies episode. The apology is literally all Trisha wants people to see, and the admission of wrongdoing somewhat on Ethan's part, even though he has already admitted to messing up in their fight in videos on the H3 channel.
I misunderstood the situation. I told Trisha that people were upset that she didn't like the segment, okay? I take the blame for that. The reason they were upset that I misunderstood is because she said she wanted to fire them all. Trisha never explicitly said, I want to fire the crew, right? So she'd say, I want you to fire the crew. No, but like you said everything. You did say that without explicitly saying I want to fire the crew.
I believe the final episode probably did get heated, like Trisha says, but probably more than just a little heated, honestly. And Ethan learned from the last Frenemies episode that aired to just not put their fights online anymore, since people begged him not to even post the last one that they ever did on the channel. He probably learned his lesson from the last time and actually listened to people by not airing this final Frenemies episode, because if Trisha is saying that it got heated and everybody told him to keep their fights private, he probably was like, let's not do that. But obviously Trisha is still super pressed, as they have said in several videos now that this is the one thing that they will hold onto against Ethan forever, that he didn't air this final Frenemies episode.
I have animosity in me still for Ethan. He admitted in that final episode that he screenshotted my texts and sent them to the crew, and that's where all things started, and that he had made some mistakes, but he can never show that. He can never prove that, and he has to blame other people and it's just like, and I will always hang on to that resentment. If someone can just admit that there was some wrongdoing, there's some closure, there's some peace. When someone can't admit their wrongdoings or that they lied about something, or it just frustrates me to no end.
I take the blame for that I misunderstood. So did you say, I want you to fire the crew? No.
And then Trisha tries to say that this stuff with Ethan is just internet stuff to them, and that, they don't reach out to each other personally, and that they could reach out to each other personally and talk about it. So Trisha doesn't really take this stuff seriously. It's just online beef to them. And Trisha says that they think Ethan is probably scared to honestly reach out privately, because he might think that Trisha is going to put everything online if they do have those private conversations. Which to me, it's like Trisha is taking so many things personally, talking about how Ethan is liking stuff about Moses and them, and all of this stuff from Trisha's past being brought up, and talking about their sister and stuff like that. So it does feel like they're taking it way more personally than just internet drama. And it's clearly affecting the family. I don't think they're putting on this show for clicks and for views. The things that they're saying to each other really could affect anyone, even if maybe they started out by pretending or faking how big this fight really was. You can't say half the things that they've said about each other and not have some sort of like weird feelings as family. And collabing with an enemy definitely isn't going to help anything, and definitely is more personal than just some online drama. They did move on for a slight second though to talk about Gabby Hanna, and Keemstar asked Trisha if they felt like Gabby was getting a little too much hate online. I don't know why Keem would even ask Trisha this question, but Trisha tried to plead the fifth on this one. Trisha says that Gabby thinks they're just trolling, but they're actually being like a mean person. And Trisha then says Gabby has an Ethan syndrome and that she can't admit to any wrongdoing. Once again, bringing up Ethan, because Trisha is still very upset that Ethan has apparently not admitted any wrongdoing in the Frenemies ending situation, even though he has, like I said, come out and said things that, he didn't really do right, or that there were misunderstandings on his end. But obviously, Trisha thinks it only occurred in this unseen Frenemies episode. They then start asking Trisha if they could ever be cool with David Dobrik, and Trisha denies this. Shocker, but says they're open to having a conversation with David. And Keem says that David reached out to people like Gabby, Big Nick, and asked Trisha if after David got called out for everything and he was in the scandal this year, if Trisha had heard anything from David, because he reached out to a bunch of other people. Why wouldn't he reach out to Trisha in his mind? And Trisha says no, and is shocked to hear that he reached out to other people. And Trisha then calls Jason and David gross, saying that they never took accountability, especially Jason, and is just completely disturbed by the way that the entire vlog squad has been reacting to what happened to David, and saying that he was just in the wrong place at the wrong time, and thus really feeling like David's apology didn't really mean anything at the end of the day. Keem then starts asking Trisha what's next after Frenemies, saying that Trisha should partner up with someone new to start making videos with, that they need a new partner in crime. And Trisha brings up that they loved Frenemies and said they've sabotaged it in the past, yeah, but they always came back. So now it's Ethan's fault that they're absolutely done with Frenemies, because Trisha says that they were down to come back and still film Frenemies, but because Ethan screenshotted their text messages and the crew wasn't down and they were uncomfortable with working with Trisha, that frenemies is done. And FaZe Banks then says that he couldn't believe how patient Ethan was with Trisha because he's such a D word normally, and everyone is just laughing, having a grand old time, joking about Ethan. And Trisha says that they saw a different side of Ethan during their falling out and when he was making 40-minute hit pieces on Trisha calling out stuff from their past. I'm just like, Trisha, you made like 20 hit piece videos on Ethan. Like, what? There's like no room to talk about being offended by Ethan's responses because you were doing the same thing. They then get into a deeper conversation about Ethan saying that he's a hypocrite. He calls out Keem for having horrible takes, but then makes bad jokes himself. And obviously, if you guys have watched my videos earlier on the week, then you know I talked about how Trisha got called out for calling out Keem and coming down on him so hard, calling him all these names for having a young girlfriend, only to go on his podcast and giggle and laugh. And when actually meeting Keemstar's girlfriend, telling Keem he's happy in his new relationship, and almost asking how it all got blown out of proportion. And literally stopped themselves from asking the rest of that question because maybe Trisha realized, oh, that was me. It was a mess of a situation, especially since Trisha has been hyping up this podcast saying that they had this great conversation. It was really, really good. They called out Keem. Keem took accountability for things. Keem was apologizing for things, all this stuff. Like, the only thing I'm hearing is laughter, people getting along, jokes being made, disses towards each other here and there, but like in a funny way. And Trisha literally saying negative things about everyone that they don't like. So back to them talking about Ethan, they get into the conversation about what's going on with the H3 channel because currently, if you guys don't know, the H3 channel has strikes. And so Ethan cannot post on the channel for, I believe, like 7 days. Ethan is under the impression that Keemstar is the reasoning behind that, which makes it all that more horrible to him that Trisha is collaborating with Keemstar. And Trisha asks Keem if he had anything to do with it because Ethan was obviously under that impression. And Keem says that since the video that got striked had portions of Ethan talking about Keem, making fun of the current situation, calling him out for the girlfriend thing, Keem says that he brought it up to his YouTube representative and tweeted at YouTube that he didn't like one of Ethan's videos and felt that his video wasn't appropriate and that if he himself had made that kind of video on his own channel, his channel would be gone, it would be deleted. And he says that he did end up deleting that tweet, but I guess YouTube saw it or somebody saw it and ended up giving Ethan a strike on that video. Keem says that he didn't specifically flag or report Ethan's video through YouTube, but did call him out on Twitter, and obviously that's why Ethan's channel is locked right now. So he didn't directly, like through YouTube, try to strike him, but him calling it out definitely led to him getting a strike. So now just think about it. Not only is this Ethan's enemy Trisha is collaborating with, not only is this Ethan's enemy Trisha is giggling with, talking badly about Ethan with, but is also the person that is restricting his ability to post videos on his channel right now. Like, what? Like, I just don't understand how Trisha doesn't think that's messed up in the slightest and has been defending going on this podcast all week long. But anyways, as much as Trisha wanted to claim that they called out Keemstar for stuff, it wasn't calling him out at all, at least not the way Trisha has called people out before. Trisha called him out for making fun of people's looks and was like, why do you do that? And he was like, I don't know. And she was like, there's so many other things that you can talk smack about. And he was like, true. I don't do it often. You can't really do that stuff anymore. And Trisha says it's not the 60s anymore. And Keemstar says that he literally wishes it was, like, for the humor. Those kind of jokes you can't get away with today. But he wishes that it was still the 60s. Is that Trisha holding him accountable for making fun of people's looks? Because it seemed like at the end of the day, he still wanted to make those jokes. He just realizes that people would be offended these days, so he doesn't do it as much. And when talking about what went down between Keem and Ethan specifically, Keem claims that he did get along with Ethan really well at one point in time when they met years ago, and he flew out to do the H3 podcast, but it was after he returned home from filming the podcast with Ethan that Ethan started to get a lot of hate for having Keem on because he was very controversial. And Ethan was then like, we don't like Keem, we just had him on as a guest. And Keem was like, what the heck? Like, I thought we had a great time. And then FaZe then says, that's what I don't like about Ethan. He's always pandering to the audience. And Trisha is like, yeah. They're then calling out all his bad videos and behavior and how now he's trying to be responsible and he's done a 180 only because it's mainstream. And Keem says that, you know, people can change, but Ethan's change has been so drastic that his change is plastic. There's no way that it's real. And Trisha is saying that he definitely goes with what the audience thinks, and that's one of the reasons why Frenemies ended, because he read the comments, and since everybody was against Trisha, he was like, nah. And Trisha, towards the end of the podcast, literally says that they take pride. This is a quote that Trisha really did say in this podcast. They take pride in being 100% sure about what they're talking about, which cracked me up because of the video I posted the other day where Trisha got called out for all these lies and people were putting them side by side, yet they're trying to say that they take pride in being 100% sure about what they're talking about. Anyways, they end the podcast with Trisha saying, I'm more pro Ethan, but I like you too, Keem. You're okay. So that's pretty much the summary of this 30-minute podcast. I mean, there's so many people that were messaging me about this podcast saying that they couldn't wait for the summary of it because they could not sit through it. And well, you guys, it was a lot because I really wanted this to be a conversation that Trisha was hyping up where they were calling out Keem, they were holding him accountable for things that he said, but obviously it just wasn't that. And it was a lot of being against Ethan and not really standing up for what they've been saying about Keem in the last couple weeks, and more just being like, yeah, ha ha ha, or I don't like that you said that, but anyways, let's move on. So that's pretty much what went down. I definitely want to know what you guys think about everything we talked about in the comments down below. I love you guys so much, and I will talk to you in the next video. Bye, guys.